Hey everyone, it's David Barnett from davidcbarnett.com, the blog site, YouTube channel, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, podcast where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses. Today, I'm really happy to have the Alchemist Entrepreneur. We've got Dov Gordon joining us from Israel. How are you this morning?
Great, David. Thanks for having me.
Um, When I think alchemy, I think about that scene from the Mickey Mouse movie where he's playing with his, with the magician's stuff when he's not supposed to be. What is it, The Apprentice? Remember that one? And all
Oh
the
yeah,
hats start marching around. Yeah.
the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yes, that's the one.
That's right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about why this label has become applied to you and some of the work that you do?
Well, I started using it after reading a book you probably read as well, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Before that, I would imagine the alchemists of old as these grungy old men hunched over a frying pan on a campfire, trying to mix in who knows what, turn lead into gold. But reading that story, you come to see it quite differently. Yeah, and you know, and you come to the way what I noticed. I don't know if other people noticed this in that story, but what I noticed is that it's really, here's what I came away thinking, and this is definitely not in the book, but I don't know where I got it. Um, it's probably not that the alchemists of old were, just delusional. Hey, maybe we could turn lead into gold. Why would you think that? I believe that what they must have been thinking was, if we can get to the underlying structure of this lead, then we can leverage it and turn it into something much more valuable.
Hmm.
And perhaps what they were trying to do with various mixing and so on was to see how we can maybe break it down so that we can build it up into something more powerful, more valuable. And I like to think, that's the approach that I take in everything we're doing in marketing and selling, specifically for entrepreneurs, small business, consultant, professional service firm, and so on. There's so much that we could do, but most people are skidding across the surface. Well, if we can slow down enough to stop, look beneath the surface and say, okay, what's this underlying structure here that we cannot move? It's firm. And how could we leverage it? Then we start to create alchemy. It's taking what we have in front of us and making it more valuable, which is really what entrepreneur means in French, as I understand it. I don't know any French. You probably do. Do you
Yeah,
speak
I do.
French where you are? Okay.
Yeah.
So is that right? Like, entrepreneur means somebody, what I remember hearing, I think from Peter Drucker, is that entrepreneur refers to somebody who takes something of lower value and converts it into something of higher value.
It quite literally means the person who takes in between. So the at the time the term was coined, they were thinking about these people who were taking fish from the ports on the coast, and they were transporting them to Paris, for example. And of
Okay.
course, the fish is worth less at the port and more in Paris. And in moving the fish from one point to the other, there was this price differential, and the entrepreneur took that money. And so it was actually a derogatory term because it was sort of like a profiteer kind of thing, where this person is simply profiting from the differential, not fully appreciating until much later the value contributed by the person who actually moved the fish.
Okay. I
Yeah,
hear hard for me to see that, I mean, I hear it. I could certainly see that, but that's certainly a one-sided view of it. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. I guess not the view we would tend to take, and probably not the view those of us, everyone listening and watching this would
So
take.
entre is between, and preneur is taker. So
Got
that's the
it.
breakdown. Yeah.
All right. Well, so the idea of alchemy, as I see it, it's kind of leveraging what you have. It's taking what's there and leveraging rather than breaking yourself against it or skidding across the surface and not even being aware of it. So, the alchemist entrepreneur, to me, that's really, that's the term that we use. Um, and, you know, a- as I've said in our other conversation, I'm not a natural marketer or salesperson. So I spent quite a number of years having to learn this. I can learn, and then adapt and then really come to understand things. Like, I like to think that I can, when I've kind of paid the price, often painfully, to figure something out over time and to really get there. I do seem to have the ability of getting to the peeling off some layers, getting to that underlying structure, and then being able to teach it and explain it to others in a way that they get. And then, things they've heard so many times before, perhaps from many different books or people or courses or programs, they suddenly get it. They suddenly understand it. Just because I really, can make it, I can take them to simplicity on the far side of complexity. I'll give a very simple example. We all know that you need every business knows that you've got to have a target market. You've got to have a clear niche, right? Everybody knows it, but it's something that most struggle with. Why is that? Because most of people, when we talk about a niche, we're talking about, who's your niche? It's going to be, professionals between 35 and 55 who drive these types of cars, read these websites, or that kind of nonsense. For most small business, that's mostly useless information. And that avatar exercise that so many people, so many consultants will lead you through, everything has its place, but it's so much information. The exercise never really ends. You can go on, and then at the end, the business, you're like, well, what do I do with all that? How do I start? And to me, that's getting across the surface. But if we say, okay, I know what's the reason, let's go deeper. Why do I need to focus everything I'm doing on a particular niche? And I thought about that, and I realized simply that, I need to be able to focus my attention, my resources, my time, my money, anything else that I'm bringing to it, my expertise, in a certain clear direction. That's number one. I can't be everywhere. I can't do everything well. Number two, I need to have a simple message that somebody, my ideal client, is going to hear and notice. And if our message is too broad, too inclusive, talks, like I help companies get the most from their people, or whatever. That's just coming up with. Everybody talks like that. But if instead I have a message that says, I help companies solve the problems they have from that employee who's too valuable to fire. Now I have a message that people say, what? Because they hear that and instantly they realize, yeah, I've got employees who are a little too valuable to fire, but no one's ever talked about it to them that way. But you can, with a penetrating message like that, you enter their mind and their heart where no one else can. Now, if the goal of a niche is that I could focus my resources and get their attention and interest, I don't need to know all those things about my ideal client, my niche. What I need to know is, what is a problem they have and don't want, and what is a result they want and don't have, right?
Instead of talking about the kind of person they most often look like or appear to be, we're actually talking about a customer journey. We're saying, what is the difficulty that this person is experiencing that's making them lift their eyes from whatever it is they do every day to kind of look for some sort of solution, and talking to them using the same kind of language that they are using in expressing their frustration.
Exactly. There was Robert Collier, I believe, famous I think advertising guy from last century, often quoted in direct marketing circles. He said that good advertising enters the conversation in the mind of the customer. And I was reflecting on that because I never read the guy's book, but I kept hearing about it. I'm like, what does that mean? Enter the conversation going on in the mind of the ideal customer. And I realized, what's the conversation going on in my mind? What's the conversation that's probably going on in your mind? It's all the same. And I realized we're only ever thinking about two things. We're thinking about a problem I have and don't want, or I'm thinking about a result that I want and don't have. A result, it could be an experience I want and don't have, a change I want and don't have. And we're thinking about it at a certain level, so that's why it's one thing to say, let's say, it's like, what was it, another life coaching, right? I had a client who's doing nicely as a life coach and felt she could do a lot better, which is unusual that any life coaches, because no one wants life coaching. Nobody, even life coaches don't buy life coaching. It's not what they want. They want to solve a problem. There's a problem they have and don't want. And there's a result they want and don't have. So I said to her, I said, make a list of the problems you can help solve, the results that you can enable, specifics. And I looked over the list. I said, you can build a business on that. And as I recall, I helped her craft the following message, which was, I help women who wake up each morning wondering, if I'm so successful, why am I so unhappy? Now
Mm.
compare, I'm a life coach. That's getting across the surface. Nobody's going to hear you. Obviously, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, you sound like everybody else, and therefore no one even notices. I don't need to know more about my, avatar. I don't need to know what kind of job she works, where she shops. I don't need to know all that. I just need to be able to get into her mind and heart so I could speak aloud what's going through her mind. Very few people ever feel understood. But when I suddenly speak aloud, well, I help women who wake up each morning wondering, if I'm so successful, why am I so unhappy? Suddenly, the right people are going to hear that, and they're like, "Are you reading my journal? Are you reading my mind? Like, were you listening to my conversation with my friend last night? Like, were we
Mm.
sitting at the next table? You know, and and then you can cut through so much of the garbage that's out there. So that's just an example of what I see as, like, okay, what is the point of highest leverage? That's what I mean by alchemy. Getting to the
Yeah.
underlying structure that actually matters and leveraging it rather than breaking yourself against it or skidding across the surface.
Mm. It's a lot of powerful concepts there that we just, touched on briefly. But when you're talking about the life coach who is creating that message for potential clients, it made me think of some of my sales training I've had over the years. And there's always this joke about everybody's listening to WIIFM, which is, of
Mm-hmm.
course, sounds like the name of a radio station, but it's what's in it for me, right?
Yep.
And you could put a message in front of those women who are unhappy, and just saying, I'm the greatest life coach, I'm the greatest life coach, and it's just all going to go past them. They're not going to pay attention because you're not talking about what's in it for them, right? Which is the thing that everyone's looking for. Now,
I think it's even more than that, but go on.
well, I was just going to say, you and I have just spent an hour in a conversation about mindset and personal development and how all of this relates to growing a business. Because every month I interview an expert for my Business Buyer Adventure Group coaching program on topics related to business ownership or transaction. So, and one of the things that I found interesting in our conversation is we got into some of the marketing work that you do, specifically with people who are sort of coaches, consultants, uh, expert specific type business operators. And that is actually creating networks around these kinds of problems, right? Networks of
Mm-hmm.
people around a problem. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that works?
So yeah, sure. So first of all, we call it an alchemy network, and there are those who are saying you've got to be doing Facebook ads, and those saying you got to be doing SEO, you got to have a podcast, or you got to be doing webinars, whatever it might be, and all of those could work, and all of those could fail. There's no one right way. What I've come to see just from my own experience and experience with people who I work with is that I think most business owners who have some kind of service or product and service where you're selling at a high enough price that people need to get to know you first. There's some
Mhm.
kind of relationship. It could be, five, 10, $15,000, 50,000, $150,000, even into low seven figures, or I suppose more. But um, the basic idea is this: is that um, let's say you give a speech, you give a talk, and that leads someone to want to sit down with you, and you have lunch with a potential client, but they're not ready now. So then where does that go? Then, like, you can email them every few months and send them something valuable, some article. There's, again, that could work. It's fine. But what if instead you would invite them into your own alchemy network, right? This is one scenario for where this makes a lot of sense. I mean, let's say it was the CEO of a a $50 million a year business, and you can help them with certain um, uh, you know it's manufacturing. You can help them with product development. Okay.
Okay.
A client of mine does something like this for companies in the multi-hundred million plus. So let's just say you can help them with, very often product development goes a lot slower than the companies would like. They end up going off on many different tangents. It costs them way more. And the answer for, or from the people, the managers, is always, I need more people. I need more tools, more money, more resources. But if you're the CEO, or you get tired of hearing that, and you suspect that there's got to be something else. There's something else missing, something fundamental, because the more money isn't solving the problem. So, and that's what my client could do. So let's say he's starting an Alchemy network, and he has,
Mhm.
by the way. So now he could reach out to the CEO or other senior executives, depending on the business, and invite them to an Alchemy network. He would give it a name that focuses on a problem they have and don't want, and or a result they want and don't have. It could be something, around new product development. It could be even a little bit more broader than that, but it has to be something that it makes that they're already putting in some time every month into. Otherwise, it's just another distraction. It has to be something that's on their minds, your ideal
Mhm.
client. And then what you do is you're bringing together a network of such people. And you start off 5, 15, 20 people, 50 people. It could be 100, 150 people. It could all be done online. And you're facilitating conversations. People get to build new relationships, learn from, and you're at the center of it. This is a way of staying connected with all these people and becoming what I think of as an under the radar industry leader.
Right.
Now, why an under the radar industry leader? Because, as I said, there are a lot of people who they're not interested in becoming the celebrity. I mean, it's just not my personality. I could fake it, and I make a total fool of myself. I just because it's not me. It's just not. But um, but when people do get to know me, when I spend some time, we have a chance to get to know each other. They come to see, hey, this guy actually knows his stuff. He's paid the price. He's got mastery, and he actually cares, and that leads somewhere.
Mhm.
So when the idea of, yes, you could do Facebook ads, you can do, you can do public speaking and so on. And a lot of those things, by the way, are amplified when you have an Alchemy network. But if you could bring together well-placed people in your industry, ideal clients or recommenders or colleagues who could put you in front of their own audiences of customers, clients, or whatever it might be, then, and all those are legitimate groups for an Alchemy network. So then you find yourself in a place where, okay, Chet Holmes had the old idea of the Dream 100. I don't know if he had the idea, but he popularized it with that term. Is that you have 100 potential clients that you're in touch with on a regular basis. This gives you a mechanism for that, but not only that, but you bring them together. And by the very fact that you're creating the network, there's so much value created for each person's participation without you being on the phone with them all the time, because you can't have equally
Yeah.
strong relationships with everybody. It's just too much, right? This is perfect for people who you tend to get most of your business from referrals or some other relationship. The problem is it's not very predictable. You can't cause a referral. I mean, there are certain things you can, but when you have people in your network and they're constantly remembering who you are, and you have a regular process of being able to remind them what you can do for them, then this whole Alchemy network makes all those things more just easier, more consistent, and more likely. And you can I mean, you never have total control over what other people are doing, obviously, but you can definitely, it gives you a chance to spark referrals, to to become that under the radar industry leader that people have you on their mind, and they come across somebody and you're the one they think of. Or when you ask them, hey, I'm looking for this, or would you want to, could we organize an event for your audience on that puts you in front of that audience of your ideal clients. All of these things are possible. I get invited on podcasts because I lead an Alchemy network. Actually, I lead two now. Um, and yeah, to some degree, I've gone out and looked for them, but I also got invited because so many people in my network have podcasts. And then other people have heard me on this podcast, reach out, invite me. It's an easy thing for
Mhm.
me to do. And I've gotten clients from it. I built new relationships from it. So that's the gist. Was that clear?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm thinking back to the days when I had different careers in sales, for example, and you always have this kind of file or pile of prospects who can take advantage of whatever it is that you're selling, but they're not ready for whatever reason, right? And then it's always, well, I need to keep top of mind with these people. I need to keep reaching out to them, and it's a very laborious thing. And then you're worried that you're annoying them or what have you, and they might have a little bit of contact with you, and they know that you have something that would benefit them, but being part of a group with other people in a similar situation other consumers of what it is that you have, the conversations they're going to have with each other, are sort of circling around you, is going to make them want to continue to be engaged. And that is, I think, the key is that when somebody decides, I mean, it's kind of like my clientele, people who want to take online courses and stuff. I put out interesting stuff like our conversation today, because I know that if people continue to be engaged with me and they find my stuff interesting, when they are ready to step forward and learn what it is that I offer, then I'm going to be the person that they choose. And so it's really about creating an opportunity for other people for when they're ready. And to me, that's really what sales are. You can't, sell something, or I get really offended by these terms like closers and stuff like this. It's almost like you can employ some sort of tactical trick to trick somebody into doing something they may not want to do at the moment. And
Yeah,
it's not something that helps you build a business where you're selling high value solutions like you're talking about, 15, 50, $100,000. You don't trick somebody through some sort of tactic into paying that kind of money. It's
right.
got to be something that they see that they're going to benefit from, and there's a mutual exchange of value.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, there's almost certainly opportunity for some kind. I mean, I don't know exactly what you've got going, and I know you're doing a lot of things, but I think maybe we talked about this, but there oh yeah, you said there are a lot of definitely people who, let's say, they have they have a podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
one way of doing that is they use a podcast as a way of meeting potential clients,
Mm-hmm.
and then interviewing the potential clients, and then sometimes that will lead to a conversation and maybe some kind of project. And this was in our behind the clients only.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yes, I've been the victim of this.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, exactly. So, but like many things, there's I was skeptical about how that works, but apparently it works, because if you, I suppose, if you do it with genuine service, as opposed to, I'm going to try to sneak you into something like you were just talking about, there's an opportunity, there's a possibility for that. Um, Now, what if somebody has a podcast, and many people do, that isn't not necessarily bringing them anywhere, and a lot of those people may not be ready for you right now. But what if you use it as a way to invite them into your Alchemy network when it makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, let's say you're only looking for certain kinds of people. You've got to be clear about the concept or certain thing. No, there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
This is not just, you've got to curate this, and that's, like, this is not a LinkedIn group. It's not a Facebook group.
It's something that requires some architecture,
It
and
requires your leadership, right?
yeah, and just as we were saying before, it's about thinking about the customer journey.
Right.
What is the pathway that these people are on, and which road would they rather be on, right? And how can we do something that provides value to engage with these people, so that while they're, and I've been, serving businesses who really wanted what I had to offer, but they couldn't implement it until they got other things lined up, right? Other things had to be taken care of first. And
Right.
so, you want to be there for them. And through this kind of alchemy network, you can actually create value that will help them maybe do those other things a little more quickly and get a little more excited about the outcome that could be there. And any business, especially a larger sort of mid-size or bigger, it takes them longer to change. It takes them longer to move sometimes, because there are so many more people often involved, and all of their commitments they have piled on. And it's easy for people to lose steam in a big change as they meet resistance and they run into problems, and then they have to stop the project while they focus on something else for the end of the quarter or what have you. And it's hard to maintain that momentum sometimes. And having something where they're part of a conversation where they're seeing other people maybe see results can help keep people on track and push them forward, so that they can then reach the point where they're ready to engage with you and become one of your customers. And so it's much more of a long cycle sales kind of strategy. And I think that, to your point, this is something that people who sell high value solutions really should be considering. And so
Yeah.
you've been working with people to build these networks as one of your main focuses now over the past year. Is that right?
Even less than a year. It's something I've been thinking about for a while because I've used one to grow my business over the last 10 years, and it's been, almost all my business has come through that as a group of colleagues in my situation. So slowly but surely, yeah, I started working with a few people, and now I created a network of people who want to build an alchemy network. So we call that the Under the Radar Leaders Network. Um, and not everybody in there is doing that, but it's for people who most of their business comes through some kind of relationship building,
Mm.
and they're interested in ideas of how to do it better, how to do it in a more leveraged way. Uh, uh, Most of them are going to have some kind of, they started or they plan to start some kind of alchemy network, and with some guidance from me and collaboration with others. So yeah, I actually I'm working with a business broker now,
Hmm.
a woman who was a CPA for many years, and she, her husband became a business broker about 10 years ago, and she was kind of always really good at it from the side, and she's moving out of CPA work into business broker work, and um,
For the excitement?
I don't know. She says she never really liked the CPA work, but no, she's closed a few deals, and I don't know the exact size of this, but she told me she got a $60,000 commission
Oh,
recently.
good for her.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that you have to be. And she's really dedicated, and when there were issues and the deal was possibly in jeopardy, she went in to make things happen, and that's what I assume the role of a broker. It's not just introduce two people; it's to really
Oh,
help make it. But
it's
you'd know better than
it's
I would.
it's the role is to be a gladiator because there's
All
always a
right.
new monster appearing in the ring that needs to be slain or controlled.
So she's starting just now. She's starting an alchemy network that's intended for business owners who, whether they plan to sell or not, but they'd like to build their business in a way that it's valuable that it could be sold in the
Mhm.
coming 3 to 5 years or so. So,
This in particular is a trend that I have witnessed. In fact, just for the Christmas Eve special, I had a gentleman on named Mike Finger who does this very thing. And more I've noticed because I listen to other podcasts that are put out by business brokers and things. A lot of business brokers are starting to focus more on trying to engage earlier with business owners to do this kind of work. Most small business owners, they don't prepare and they don't look for help early enough, and then
mhm,
something personal happens and they end up suddenly having to put the business up for sale. And often, it could have been much better for them if they had done XYZ things 2 years ago that they
right.
never did. And so I definitely see the value in this, and I hope enough people start doing it that the business owners start to um, start to see that it's something more important, because for a lot of small business owners, they're so focused on the daily activities that they don't do that some of that top level strategic work uh,
Right.
enough.
And, exactly how it's going to play out remains to be seen. And like you said, building an alchemy network is a long-term strategy, but the truth is anything you're going to do is a long-term strategy.
Mm.
We're all on some level, we're wired to look for that quick fix. We're wired to say, oh, if I could just get this, then everything will be fine. That's not how life really works. Anyone listening to this who's over 30 knows that, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
You never arrive, and our goal has to be much more than arriving. So, when it comes to a long-term strategy, I mean, I know I have a friend and a colleague. I think you may know him as well. He was spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on Facebook ads a little over a year ago, and then one month it just tanked. He was making several $1 million, and then it stopped. And then he spent $600,000 over, I think, 8 or 9 months with 3 different agencies to try to get it back. Nothing. You know. So and not that doesn't even talk about all those who spent so much money and never got anything from it. He was actually had something going. He's had to redo his business, figure it out, and it's tough. So nothing, there is no silver bullet. And
Mm.
once you really accept that there is no silver bullet, what's the one thing that nobody can take away from you? and that is relationships. Relationships with the right people. That's what nobody can take away. And if you create your own network, and I like to say that, it just like when you own the casino has an advantage. When you own the network, you have an advantage.
Yes.
And that's really what, when you own the network, you have an advantage. You're building relationships, you're getting to know people, you're introducing them to each other, because there are lots of things they can get without you being directly involved. But nevertheless, you're always there, and you'll hear from them at the right time. And sometimes you have the opportunity of kind of prodding in a nice way,
Mm.
and because you're creating something valuable for them all the time.
Uh, this has been great. Great ideas. If there are people that are watching who want to find more information or reach out and talk with you, Dov, how do they reach you?
Oh, I have a short training on how to actually go about building an Alchemy network and become an under the radar industry leader. It's at dovgordon.net/under the radar. So that's DOVGORDON.net/under the radar. If anyone wants to reach me directly, you could email me, dovgordon@dovgordon.net. That's DOVGORDON@dovgordon.net. So
And that'll be in the show notes if any of you are driving or whatnot right now. Thank you so much,
thank
Dov.
you,
It's
David.
great to talk with you again. It's always a pleasure whenever we can get together. And of course, for everyone out there, don't forget, if you're interested in business deals and some of the stuff that gets talked about on this show, make sure that you're on my email list, and you can find that over at davidcbarnett.com. There's a sign up form, and you can check off the topics or areas of interest that you have, so that I only send you emails on those topics. And you'll never miss a new video, and you'll get offered things that I send out before everyone else does on the main YouTube channel. And with that, we'll say see you later. Bye, Dov.
Bye. Thanks.